But if you're a software business, people still need to learn about all the things that you do. And search is always going to be a part of that, right? Like you're not going to be able to just rely on ads.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Kasiotis, and today I'm very happy and excited to be joined by someone I've been following for quite some time now, Gaetano DiNardi. I'm sure you know him. Most likely you've interacted with his LinkedIn posts. Gaetano is a growth advisor to software companies like Docebo, Gong, Alice, Cognism, Work, Vivo, Aura, and Nextiva. 8+ years of demand gen leadership in SaaS with expertise in optimizing websites and scaling organic growth machines. Published writer on HBR, Fast Company, NASDAQ, and HubSpot. Outside of marketing, Gaetano is a music producer and songwriter and loves making music to stay super charged. Gaetano, welcome.
Thank you. That was a very nice intro. Thank you for that.
Can you please share a few things besides, the things I shared in the intro? I know that you started, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you started your journey, at least, regarding SEO at Sales Hacker. Is that right? What did you do before that?
Yeah, it was even before Sales Hacker. I was doing SEO. Pipedrive was really like my first, I would say, professional level in-house software assignment. Before that, I was doing SEO for an agency in New York. And I would say, every marketer at some point should join an agency because that's where you learn a lot, honestly. And I thought about my path and I realized that if I were to start at a big company, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. Starting at an agency or being a part of an agency early in your life as a marketer is a tremendous benefit. And so anyway, long story short is that I was in the music business even before that, blogging. This was like 2011. And I got introduced to SEO from blogging about the music business. And people were finding my content and I wasn't promoting it. So I was wondering, how are people finding this? How do I have random comments from people and I'm not even really like promoting it that much? I'm just writing. And it was because SEO, Google, people were searching for the things I was writing about and they were finding my stuff. And I loved not having to promote and people just finding my content. And so from that moment on, I was like, all right, this is it. I want to do this. I love this idea that I can create something great and people will find it. And so I went to work at an SEO company, then Pipedrive, sales, CRM software. Fun fact, I went to Estonia like 25, 30 times. And that was cool. And then Sales Hacker, that was an amazing experience. We took that program to a very high level. The company was acquired by Outreach. And then from there, I've been at software businesses ever since, doing growth marketing, demand gen, really all things digital. I would consider my specialty to be capturing demand. So SEO, paid search, affiliate marketing, content, website optimization is really where I'm strong. And, I made a good run at these places. And here we are today. I'm just consulting and advising. And it's a lot of fun. So thanks again for having me.
I was thanks a lot for joining us. I was in Estonia a couple of months ago, and I saw Pipedrive's I don't know how to call it, like let's say building, right?
HQ.
They're pretty big there, and also interestingly enough, one of the co-founders started a like a co-working space there, Lift 99.
Sure. Yeah.
And we had an event there, and I mean, it was very impressive to see the community that they've built there, right? And such a small country, because it's like Estonia and like Tallinn, where I spent 1 month, is a very small country, right? Like they have so many unicorns and so many like SaaS companies that kick ass, and it's really impressive, and it says something about, I think, their culture and how they embrace technology. How would you summarize what you learned from driving organic growth for all these great companies these last 8 years?
Man, I learned so much. It's hard to put into words, actually, the knowledge and the experience, but a lot of things come to mind. It's the things that you need to do to become great. I figured what that is about, which is really comes down to hard work, but also it comes down to quality of execution. So it's, a lot of people are so caught up on strategy and they take so much time to figure out strategy, but the reality is it comes down to content and links for the most part. And if you are not moving at a pace that's needed to publish and refresh content. So the way I think about it is you have input metrics, the activities. Without that, you're not going to get anything, as I'm sure you know. Then leading indicators, you need rankings, you need to be found, you need impressions, you need clicks, you need engagement, you need traffic. From there, it's what is the lagging outcome, which is, not everybody is going to read a content page and convert, but what might they do? Well, they might sign up for a newsletter or something like that. They may download something. They may convert, but that's unusual, unless it's like a really bottom of funnel intent topic, which we'll talk about. But the most likely thing that will happen is they'll just read it, they'll get value out of it, and what happens after that, we don't know. You have to retarget. You have to hope they see more content on another channel somewhere. If they're an in-market solution seeker, then they'll probably come back if, that counts. But, in terms of, what have I learned? It's at the end of the day, if you don't do the work, you're not going to get any outcomes. That's just the bottom line. You need to publish at a certain velocity and quality, new content, refresh content, and then links, they still matter a lot. So content and links, I know it's a very common song and dance, but it still holds true today. So that's how I would summarize it.
This is where, for the most part, this is where everything boils down to. But do you think that there is also a brand element into all this? And I think of, Nextiva's case, for example, and you're competing against like some very big companies like Ring Central and so on. I mean, if someone sees one of the two results on the SERPs, do you think that the brand play will have an impact over who is going to get the click and so on and so forth?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. It's the law of repetition, actually. I don't know if you heard that saying, but it's like what gets repeated gets remembered, what gets remembered gets done. So if you apply that to search, it's powerful when somebody is searching for something that they need or they're interested in, and they see paid ad, they see organic listing, they see affiliate listing, they see you on review page, they see you on aggregator roundup. Even that new module that you see from Google that says around the web or sources say, that is aggregated by the number of mentions and the quality of mentions that you have online. And so there's definitely no question about it. Whoever is seeing more or most often in those results tends to get picked more. That's just the way it is. And so one listing isn't good enough in a hyper-competitive environment like voice over IP, business communication software. You need to be all over that result. And there's many of them. Back to what I've learned, it's like you actually can find examples where even today, Google still kind of rewards exact match. So virtual phone system, business phone service, kind of the same thing, but you need an exact match differentiator to capture those lanes of traffic. Cloud phone system versus, this, right? Again, it's not necessarily the case anymore where one page can get traffic for it all. You have to kind of evaluate this on a case-by-case basis. And this is what makes SEO so challenging, is that there's all these nuances. And so, I don't know, man, I think I'll just leave it at that. That's what I'll say.
It's also, I'm thinking very often that SaaS SEO is kind of sort of commoditized, and it seems very obvious from like the outside, right? You have different sets of keywords, and these are, for the most part, the pages you need to create. You need to create good content, you need to get some links, you need to get mentions in like the G2s of the world. But isn't that the exact reason why it's so difficult? Exactly because it's so obvious, people will, for the most part, check the boxes in terms of best practices. And so the kind of the bar is raised, especially today as I see it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. What I've observed is, really where SEO is going, it's becoming more of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer scenario, unfortunately. And if you're one of these companies that has created this, indestructible moat, this impenetrable wall of defense with SEO, that's going to carry you for years and years and years to come. A challenger is almost never going to be able to displace that. It's just too difficult. If you have a page that's been ranking and getting traffic for a commercial term for like 6, 7, 8+ years, and it's got hundreds or maybe thousands of referring domains, they're constantly updating it and they're growing their brand and they're getting reviews and, everything's kind of just going up and up. You're not going to be able to break that. You're just not. And so, I have this conversation with clients all the time where they're like, yeah, we want to rank for this and we don't rank for it today and we're a challenger brand. What's it going to take? And I open Ahrefs and I show them the top ranking page and I show them the timeline, the history of when did the page get published? How long did it take them from the first moment that page went live to where it is now? And I show them the correlation between the number of referring domains with that traffic growth and where it's at and how long it took. And when they see, damn, Ring Central published their first cloud phone software page in 2013, and they've been building links to that thing for 10 years. But that's the reality. That's the reality of how competitive it is. These companies have had the big dogs have had a head start. So that's what makes it so tough.
I agree with you. And I think, like most companies are excited until they see what, actually takes, right? And it's not just a matter of budget, even though, of course, you can do many things if money is not an issue, but it's not just a matter of budget because, as you mentioned, if someone is doing this for, I don't know, 10 years or something, of course, that gives them a head start, right? Which is very difficult to beat. Now, you've been doing this for almost a decade now, and of course, it is a time of change and new things coming up in search. Have you seen anything like the changes we are experiencing right now? I'm referring to generative AI and Google's SG.
Man, I have not seen anything this crazy in my time doing this. I mean, obviously, we have to evolve as marketers, and this is going to keep us on our toes. I'm actually happy this is happening because, it can't just be the same forever, right? Eventually, change has to occur. When I think about the biggest change that I've seen before this, I think it was probably the rollout of the BERT model, which is basically a model that helps Google understand searches better than ever before from a meaning standpoint. Like before, it was just like, yeah, these are the matching, results to keywords. Then it's now matching results to intent and meaning. And so that was a pretty significant update. There's been various spam updates, which I think have been meaningful as well. But, today, wow, I don't think I think this is going to be a potential. I think there's two ways it could really unfold. Scenario A is atomic bomb. Traffic gets eroded. This is something that's going to stick and be here forever. They're going to roll out the generative AI experience, and this is the way it's going to be. Scenario B is, well, it doesn't really land as well as people thought. Maybe this GPT, because when GPT came out is what really triggered this. It was Google's way of saying, we got to adapt to the times and fight back and roll out an experience that is consistent with this GPT style. This may not land as well as people think. We don't know yet, right? We're in the world of tech, so for us, it's cool. But what about the average person? Are they going to like this? I don't know. So I think they are going to very, very, very carefully consider the pros and cons of, do people like this? The advertising model, they're not going to sacrifice ad revenue for short-term bursts of engagement with this new system. I mean, maybe, but for the long term, they're not going to sacrifice ad revenue, because the number one thing that matters to Google is shareholder profits and stake in the company, right? So, to summarize, this is a wild development. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds. A lot of speculation right now. I'm not a huge fan of speculation, but generally speaking, I think this could really go maybe one of two ways, and maybe where it all ends up is that for certain kinds of queries, it stays, and for others it doesn't. And so that may be where it all goes.
And also, I think your point regarding us, let's say broadly defined as tech people using it, it may be fun, and maybe we are okay using it, and maybe we feel comfortable using it because we are more, let's say, savvy. I don't know if that's the right word. And also, that makes me think regarding the feedback they receive in this beta version from people who are, for the most part, people who are interested in search, right? And so maybe the feedback they get is also a bit biased. Anyway, this is all pure, speculation, that, as you mentioned, and I think that we should stick to what we know. A few weeks ago, you mentioned on Twitter that brand SEO just became more important in the context of all these changes. Can you please share what you meant by that?
Yeah. So SEO actually has gotten a lot of hate in the B2B software world. I think you probably saw some of those pages that said, SEO is forcing people who want real information to go to Reddit. So you add, whatever thing you want to search for plus Reddit, because you want to get the real information and you don't want to read articles and content that's been so-called gamed by people like us. Right. So that's one side of it. And there's been this kind of drawing a line in the sand in the world of B2B SaaS regarding, am I capturing demand that's out there, or am I so-called creating demand? Or am I, am I a category creator? Am I marketing in a manner that is education focused to the point that when the problem arises in that buyer's world, they won't even go through SEO buying process. They will just come straight to me. And in a world of, Google's generative experience where traffic erosion is very likely, well, maybe there's some validity to that, right? Maybe as SEO, we realize and acknowledge and, accept that there's just going to be less traffic up for grabs. So we have to actually figure out a way to distribute content in an outbound manner and not rely so much on inbound SEO as the way that we're going to get traffic and, leads and conversions for our businesses. So it's possible that if you're the kind of company that has no brand and all, SEO, which there are some examples of companies out there that do that, maybe not in software, but in commodity products, then you may be in trouble. But I think probably to summarize all of this, where I was going with it is maybe companies need to figure out some of that balance between capturing demand and creating demand. So Nextiva kind of does come to mind, actually. Like, we were 100% focused on demand capturing. And so it was one of those businesses that like you'd only hear about if you Googled for the thing that you needed. Like, brand became a thing because of, we had a good advertising program and a lot of events and a lot of channel repartners, resellers and channel partners and stuff like that. But ultimately, like, the number one way people would digitally convert is through non-branded SEO, right? And so I think that the kind of the point behind that mention on Twitter was, maybe companies need to think about a broader approach. And if you're stuck in the, SEO hamster wheel and you're about to lose a lot of traffic, you may want to consider some new approaches.
The interesting thing about Nextiva is that, of course, I learned it from you. I wasn't aware of the company back then. And when, I don't know if it was you or who was it, I saw some data, like the fact that back then it was at around 200 million in ARR. And I was like, what? I mean, what is this company that's doing 200 million in ARR? And I have never heard of it before, right? And it's a like big company. It's very impressive what they have achieved, right? And regarding traffic, a point that I think not many people discuss, of course, once again, pure speculation, but if the search engine results pages for some queries end up being so cluttered and so, full of distraction, let's say, and after all this distraction, someone ends up to your website after all, then maybe there is a chance that this person has a stronger intent. So you could expect less traffic, but maybe people with higher, stronger intent, right? Which is a great thing. So we may have to kind of, adapt to this new reality, whatever it may be. Given all these changes, let's say, a director of SEO at a SaaS company you work with comes to you and they are like, Gaetano, I'm stressed out, man. I don't know what to do. Like, this SG and AI content and all these changes, they're stressing me out. Would you advise keep pushing and investing in SEO? Or would you say that, maybe it's time to kind of consider other channels as well?
I would advise that person to consider the following. Fear is based on something that has not yet happened. So if it has not yet happened, it's good to be aware, but you shouldn't have too much anxiety over something that has not happened yet. So I would just kind of start by saying, look, no need to push the panic button. if you're a SaaS business, you're not a recipe site where you can easily be replaced by Google, or I think companies like probably like ticket sales, like we've already seen that with like Expedias of the world and SeatGeeks and StubHubs, like that. All that stuff took a huge hit because Google just putting their own experiences in there. But if you're a software business, people still need to learn about all the things that you do. And search is always going to be a part of that, right? Like you're not going to be able to just rely on ads. Obviously like there's offline and online components. Like events are the silent factor of software businesses that never really show up on the scoreboard, but matter a lot. Like I'm working with a company now that does 100 events a year. Online and offline events a year, over 250, meaning webinars, digital hangouts, plus local meetups, large scale conferences, all that kind of stuff. So when you factor in, 250 online and offline events a year, that's a lot of commotion. You know what I mean? That's just like a lot of shit that's happening. So that's a silent scoreboard thing that you have to factor into. In terms of the SEO, I wouldn't necessarily panic about it. If things are going well and you have a good program, I would be aware of the changes that are happening. And I think it's too early still to be speculative about what's going to happen. And there's not one SEO expert or influencer out there that can really say, here's the definitive strategy for what you should do once the, generative AI experience rolls out. No one knows. You can play around in the sandbox and make your own kind of judgments, but I would say for now, just like stick to it. At the end of the day, it's about finding pain point topics and writing great content about it. Think about video. Video is the one thing where I think you could potentially, avoid some of these problems. But at the end of the day, video takes a while to spin up. You're not just going to be able to launch YouTube tomorrow and start growing a huge channel. But that's a long-term play. Look at Ahrefs and those guys who have, look at, what's that guy? Noah Kagan. He has a really good channel. Those kinds of, programs, right, where you stick to creating video content for a long time, that can pay off. So, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that question, but that's my rough take on it.
Interestingly enough, yesterday I had a chat with Samuel from Ahrefs for the podcast, and they achieved some pretty interesting stuff from this YouTube channel, right? And there are some very good examples nowadays. I like SlideBean's approach to video. It's pretty interesting. Also, I think Paddle Studios, with the acquisition of Profitwell, they have started already doing some interesting stuff on their YouTube channel. So I agree, video can be a vehicle for growth and also doing something different in B2B SaaS, right? Back to SEO. In an interview you gave a few years ago for the Experts on the Wire podcast with Dan Schur, you described that one of the first things you did when you started working with Sales Hacker was a massive cleanup, essentially, as per my understanding, a content audit. Is that what you always do as a starting point for established websites? And if so, what the process generally looks like?
Man, that's a good one. So, with that particular site, there was a lot to play with already. So it made sense, actually, to start with that, just because it's a content site, So they had hundreds and hundreds of pages already published and getting traffic. So I'm like, all right, there's a lot to play with here. So let me just start there, because it just has a lot of room to just see what's going on, and there's a lot of things that have already been done. In other cases, I actually may not start with something like that. There is something that I use to help me figure this out. I have created my own problem identification chart for SEO. And what it has is, imagine a couple of columns. The first column says problem. And really all SEO problems can be, they're pretty much always the same for B2B SaaS especially. And so that problem list has the following things on it. Organic traffic is primarily brand. Organic traffic is flat or not growing. Organic traffic is declining. Organic traffic is not producing revenue. Organic traffic is attracting the wrong kinds of people, right? It has that. Then what is the impact of the specific problem? Well, if your organic traffic is primarily branded search, that means you are not being found for non-brand commercial intent searches, right? And then I have the root causes. I've mapped out the root causes behind all of these problems. So I know exactly why they are happening. So if your organic traffic is primarily branded search, why is that? Well, you probably have a lack of a keyword strategy. Traffic generation has primarily come from other channels like events, social, email, and paid ads. You're not publishing enough or not fast enough, or the content quality is not good enough to compete, right? That is the basic premise of it. So because I have the starting point that lets me see what are all the problems, it's always about starting with the problem. That's actually what I want to get to. It's just start with the problems and then work your way backwards to try and figure out how to figure out, reverse engineering the problem. That tells you where to start. And that's it. Yeah, that's how I would approach it. Yeah.
One of the problems I see when it comes to B2B SaaS companies is that, we create, you mentioned, for example, keywords with commercial search intent, let's say alternative pages, list posts, right? We create these pages, and I think that we don't pay as much attention to conversion optimization. So we will list the tools and we will do a great job regarding that. But very often companies do not care as much about, okay, what can we do to actually capture some of the visitors on that page, so we can turn them into, trials, demo requests, and so on and so forth. We have a client who is doing some pretty interesting experiments and things regarding that, and we really learn from them, and they learn from us during that process. But I would like to hear your thoughts on that, and whether there is anything that you can say you've seen work when it comes to, okay, not just getting traffic, but getting leads and demo requests and whatever the offering may be.
Yeah. Well, if you zoom out and just become realistic for a moment, the reality is, most software companies that are doing SEO programs will create, how many pages do you think that are part of the SEO program? Maybe 100, 200, maybe 200 pages, maybe 300, maybe maximum 500 pages. Even if it's 500 pages, how many of those pages do you think represent the very, very high buying intent? A very small amount.
Very small, yeah, just a fraction.
Just a fraction. We can say probably 10% at best. I think that's a very good case scenario. When you consider that 90% of the SEO program is full funnel and not really focused on bottom of funnel, well, you can't expect to get a lot of conversions because that's not what happens. That's just it, right? So that's part of it. So anyway, when you just acknowledge that maybe only 10% of your SEO program is going to signups or commercial intent stuff, then what you can do is just isolate to the pages that are meant to get conversions or would be the most likely to get conversions. So of course, competitor pages, pricing related question pages, very specific pain point use case pages, and anything that contains your classic software system, platform, tool, right? Any of those, which, let's be real, most of those are list style pages at this point. then what you have is a much easier starting point to work with, because you're weeding out all the noise. One of the biggest disconnects is, hey, why aren't we getting conversions from all these other pages? Well, that's just not going to happen. So you just focus on the pages that are likely to get conversions. From there, what you actually need to figure out is, well, what is the way that people buy software or buy this product, And even then, list pages, alternatives to pages, they're still in solution narrowing mode. They haven't chosen you yet. So even though as high intent as that is, it's still not likely that they're going to convert on that page. They might, but what's far more likely to happen is, because they're still in research mode, they're still in solution narrowing mode, they're not really ready to convert there yet. They're almost ready. So what they're going to do is most likely bounce from that page or click through to other pages, come back. They probably got a lot of different browser tabs open. They're looking at a lot of different things. They're searching several times in many different ways, looking for all the kinds of information they want. They're looking at review sites and aggregator sites and affiliate sites and, whatever, right? After all that's done, the most likely places they are to convert are homepage, what a surprise, and pricing page, what a surprise, and maybe some product page on the site, which represents the main thing that they want. What a surprise. And so companies are effectively spinning their wheels trying to get these SEO pages to convert. Meanwhile, that's just not the place where conversions happen. Sure, there's things you can do, and I'm not saying you should give up on that. But you're much better off just kind of realizing that, look, the way that people buy, and you should look at the navigation pathing on your site to figure this out. But it's just not realistic to say that, hey, our SEO program is converting really low. It's just not the way it happens. It's not like you're selling toothbrushes and toothpaste. Best toothpaste for sensitive teeth, convert right there. It's just not the way it works. And so that is probably what I would say. Before you start spinning your wheels trying to do all these wacky tricks, just accept that the way people buy this stuff is not how it's been explained according to conventional wisdom.
Second to last question I have for you. SEO aside, what can SaaS companies do nowadays to stand out? Especially, like most SaaS categories are highly commoditized, but we have some outliers, right? We have some companies that we use as examples, let's say, in podcasts, in webinars, or, in conversations we have with friends and partners. But these are just, some very few examples, like Gong and Thrift and so on and so forth. On a very practical level, what can companies do nowadays to stand out?
In terms of standing out, I think there are few things that can be done kind of immediately. One of them is video. If you think about all things that are easy to scale, all the things that are easy to copy, all the things that are easy to automate, the thing that immediately kind of just like falls outside of that scope is video. It's like it's hard to do. And this is why not a lot of companies want to do it, because it's hard. It requires you to really understand content, audiences. It's actually the most intimate form of marketing if you think about it. It's like somebody on a camera talking about the things and problems and pain points and blah, blah. So starting with video may be the best way actually to stand out from a digital perspective. Like one thing that came up on a client call today was I brought up the example of Wix. Wix, for the longest time, has had what problem? the negative perception that they're a sucky platform for SEO. This has been the long withheld belief, whether it's true or not, because experts in the field said it and because chatter about it online has spread. In the minds of SEOs, I'm never going to use Wix. I'm going to go use to the tried and true methods and platforms. So what has Wix been doing such a good job of lately? Using video to fight back against that narrative. I can't open up YouTube right now without getting hit with a Wix pre-roll ad that says we're the best platform for super fast SEO. Update your title tags like this and, change page templates in the blink of an eye and blah, blah. Even they're working with influencers to spread positive messages about them, right? And so that is kind of how you do it, right? Like that video content was really eye-opening, actually. And because they're flooding the internet with that video content that fights back against that long withheld negative belief, I think they're definitely gaining ground. So, I think the question is like beyond just how do we differentiate or how do we become different in our marketing, but it's, digging into those kinds of issues, finding out like, all right, well, what is the number one problem our buyers have? What's the number one objection? Well, we suck at SEO. This is hurting our business. We need to go fix that. Starting with the problem again, I think is key. And so that's how I would think about it.
And that's a great way to, close this episode. Last question I have for you: where can people find out more and, get in touch, say hi?
Yeah. Twitter's pretty good. I respond fast there. So Gaetano NYC. I don't live in New York City anymore, but that's just been attached to my profile for so long that I don't feel like changing it. And Twitter, you can hit me up there and I'll respond pretty fast.
That's great. We will drop it in the show notes. Gaetano, thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.